The most humiliating moment of my life began with a diamond chandelier, a silver tray, and a stranger calling me a thief in a room full of people richer than God. I froze in the middle of the ballroom, my pulse slamming against my throat, while every head at the charity gala turned toward me like I had set the place on fire. 1 second I was balancing champagne flutes for tips I desperately needed. The next, a man in a dark suit was gripping my wrist and glaring at the small black USB in my hand like it was a loaded weapon. "Where did you get that?" he snapped. He tried to pull free. "I found it on the floor." My voice sounded thin. "Useless." He laughed like I was stupid. "Sure you did." It flooded my face. He could feel it, that awful burn of public shame crawling up my neck while women in diamonds stared and men in tuxedos smirked like they already knew what kind of girl I was. He wanted to disappear. He wanted to scream. Instead, I stood there holding a stranger's secret in my shaking hand. Then everything got worse. Another man stepped out from the VIP section and said, loud enough for half the ballroom to hear, "Check her bag." He went cold. "Do not touch me," I shot back, finally finding my voice. "I did not steal anything." But they were already closing in security. Guests. Whispers. "Bad girl. Gold digger. Sit up." My chest tightened so hard it hurt. He had only picked up a lost drive. Now I was being skinned alive by people who had decided what I was before I even opened my mouth. And that was when he appeared. Roman DeLuca did not raise his voice. He did not rush. He just walked through the crowd like the room belonged to him, took the USB from my hand, and looked at the men around me with that cold, deadly calm that made everyone step back without being told. His eyes landed on me last. Gray. Hard. Impossible to read. "She is under my protection," he said. The room went silent. My stomach dropped. Because I had never seen this man before in my life. And somehow, with one sentence, the most dangerous man in the room had just claimed me like I was his secret. The first thing Roman DeLuca stole from me was not my freedom. It was my phone. By the time his car stopped, the ballroom was already gone behind me, all glitter and whispers swallowed by black-tinted glass and 20 floors of cold Chicago night. He barely had time to register the penthouse before one of his men held out his hand. "Your phone, Miss Bennett." He clutched it tighter. No, Roman did not even look back as he walked inside. "Take it." That did it. It shot through me. You do not get to order people around like they belong to you. It turned then. Calm. Sharp. Expensive. "Tonight, I do." My stomach twisted. He hated that those 4 words landed harder than a shout. Beat one was simple. It took me upstairs. Took my phone. Took every exit I could see and turned them into reminders that I was trapped. Beat 2 started in his glass-walled office, the whole city spread behind him like proof that men like Roman never heard the word no for long. He set the USB on the desk between us. "Where did you get it?" "I told you." "He found it." "Who gave it to you?" "No one." His eyes narrowed like he was sorting lies from air. People do not accidentally end up with something that valuable. He laughed once. "Bitter. You want the truth?" He was carrying champagne for tips because my rent is due and my mother's hospital bill does not care that rich people love a silent auction. That is how I ended up with it. For 1 second, something flickered in his face. Gone just as fast. "That does not clear you." Beat 3 hit when I stepped back from the desk and realized the front elevator needed a code, the private elevator needed his fingerprint, and every floor-to-ceiling window was more fortress than view. "You kidnapped me. I removed you from a hostile environment. That is not better. It is if you are still alive." The words landed wrong. "Too cold. Too certain." He wanted to throw something at him. He wanted to believe he was bluffing. Then Beat 4 arrived in my own hand. One of his men placed my phone on the desk for a security scan before taking it again, and the screen lit for half a second. Unknown number. One new message. He only caught a line before it vanished. "We know where your brother goes after school." The blood drained out of me so fast I had to grab the chair. Roman saw it. Of course he did. What did it say? He asked. He looked up at the man who had claimed me in public and caged me in private, and for the first time that night, fear beat anger. Because if they knew about Noah, then Roman had not dragged me into danger. It had pulled me out of it. And that only made one question worse. Who in God's name was hunting me? By morning, the internet had already decided what kind of girl I was. Roman's penthouse had a wall of glass facing Lake Michigan, but all I could see was my own face reflected over a news headline on the giant television downstairs. Mafia Heir hides mystery woman after gala scandal. Tenanoter. Secret girl Orestolinasit. My stomach flipped so hard I had to grip the kitchen counter. Turn it off, I snapped at no one. A house staff woman lowered her eyes and clicked the screen dark, but the damage was done. Beat one hit fast. My name was not on those headlines, but my shame was. He felt stripped anyway. Roman walked in a second later, immaculate as ever, like public ruin was just another Tuesday. He pointed at the blank screen. This is because of you. I barely glanced at it. It is because someone wants pressure on you. He laughed. Sarp. Hate. No. This is because you stood in a ballroom and acted like I belonged to you. His expression did not move. You are alive because I did. Beat 2 came with the first real crack in me. I need to go to work, I said. I already missed my morning class. If I lose that job, I am done. Roman set a cup of coffee on the marble island like we were discussing weather. You are not leaving. You do not get to decide that. I already did. Rage surged through me so fast my hands shook. I am not one of your employees. I am not one of your secrets. I am not staying here while the whole city decides I slept my way into your penthouse. His jaw tightened, just once. Then let them talk. That hurt more than. He wanted it to. Beat 3 was stupid. Desperate. Necessary. When one of his men stepped away from the front corridor, I moved. Fast. Through the hallway. Past the elevator. Down the service stairs in shoes meant for a gala, not a sprint. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. For one wild second, I thought I had done it. He burst onto the street, sucked in cold Chicago air, and started walking like if I looked normal enough, I could become normal again. Then a black SUV rolled slow at the curb. 2 men on the sidewalk turned at the same time and looked straight at me. Not curious. Not random. Chanting. One lifted his phone. The other started toward me. My blood went cold. Beat 4 ended exactly the way Roman knew it would. A hand caught my elbow and yanked me back before either man reached me. He twisted, ready to fight, then slammed into a charcoal wool coat in a wall of controlled fury. Roman. Look at me, he said. He did. His gray eyes were flat ice. You just proved my point. He shoved me into the waiting car, climbed in after me, and locked the door himself. He was breathing too fast. Too hard. He hated that he was right. He hated even more that the 2 men on the sidewalk had not looked surprised to see me. They had looked relieved. Which meant someone had known exactly when I would run. The worst part about being trapped in Roman DeLuca's world was not the locked doors. It was needing something from him. The car ride back to the penthouse was silent except for my breathing, still too fast, and the sound of Chicago traffic sliding by below us. He stared at the dark window and tried not to think about the 2 men on the sidewalk. Tried not to think about the text about Noah. Tried not to think about how Roman had been right. He hated that most of all. Beat 1 started the second we stepped inside. He turned on him before his men could disappear. I need to call my brother. My voice cracked anyway. He hated that too. Roman loosened his cuff links like I had asked for a weather update. Not yet. He stepped closer. He is 16. Which is exactly why I'm not handing you a phone until I know he is safe. You do not get to screen my family. His eyes cut to mine. Cold. Focused. Tonight, I do. The words hit like a slap because they sounded almost identical to the ones he had used before, and yet this time fear kept me from throwing them back at him. I made a call. Spoke low and fast to someone named Luca. Asked for Noah Bennett's school, home, current status. He stood there shaking while a stranger decided whether I was allowed to hear my own brother's voice. When Roman finally held the phone out to me, he said only, 2 minutes. Beat 2 broke me in a different way. Claire? Noah sounded breathless, confused, alive. My knees almost gave out. Noah, listen to me. Are you okay? Yeah, but Mom is not. The room tilted. What do you mean? The clinic called again. They want more tests. She tried to act normal, but she could barely stand up this morning. He pressed a hand over my mouth. Roman was across the room, saying nothing, but I could feel him watching me. I will fix it, I whispered. I promise. Noah gave a small, tired laugh. You always say that. Then the line was gone. 2 minutes. Exactly. Beat 3 came an hour later when I walked past Roman's office and heard my mother's name through the half-open door. He stopped dead. Move her file to a private specialist, Roman said into the phone. No delays. No billing calls to the house. Keep my name out of it. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. For one wild, stupid second, warmth rose in my chest. Then he looked up and saw me in the doorway. The warmth died instantly. You were listening, he said. You were helping, I shot back. His face turned unreadable. Do not romanticize logistics, Claire. He stared at him, at the man who had terrified me, humiliated me, protected me, and now was paying my mother's medical bills like it meant nothing. Why? He asked. Roman set his phone down with brutal calm. Because if someone is using your family to get to you, I need them alive, stable, and out of reach. There it was. Not kindness. Strategy. Not softness. Control. Back when I lay awake that night, I could not stop hearing the words he had tried to bury under cold logic. Keep my name out of it. And I hated that I no longer knew which version of Roman DeLuca scared me more. By the next morning, fear had changed shape. It was no longer just mine. It had Noah's face. He was halfway through a cup of coffee I did not want when the call came through the secure line Roman's staff had finally let me use. Noah sounded off. Todo casual. Todo careful. Some lady talked to me outside school, he said. Every muscle in my body locked. What lady? I do not know. Bland. Fancy coat. She said I should tell you to give back whatever you took before people get hurt. The mug slipped in my hand and coffee splashed across my wrist. Hot. Sharp. Real. Did she touch you? He snapped. No. But she knew Mom's name. Claire, what is going on? My throat closed. He gave him the only lie I had. Nothing. Just go straight to class. Do not leave with anyone. Do you hear me? Claire, I ended the call because if I heard panic in his voice, I was going to break. Beat 1 hit like a truck. They had crossed the line. They were not just watching me anymore. They were circling my little brother. Beat 2 was worse because it forced me to do the one thing I had been fighting since the gala. I went straight to Roman's office. He looked up once from a folder, saw my face, and stood. What happened? He hated that I answered immediately. They approached Noah. The room changed. His expression did not, but the air did. Colder. Harder. I picked up his phone. Luca. 2 men on Noah Bennett. School, home, rap, all day. Then he looked at me. Now you tell me everything again. From the gala. Minute by minute. He bristled out of instinct. I already told you. Then tell me better. The command in his voice should have made me furious. Instead, it steadied me. Barely. Beat 3 dragged me back through every second I wanted to forget. The volume. The try. They dropped USB. The men closing in, the second voice saying check her bag. Roman listened without interrupting, one hand braced on the desk, eyes fixed on me like he was rebuilding the whole night brick by brick. Your bag, he said suddenly. Where is it? I frowned. In the guest room. I nodded once. Bring it. Beat 4 cracked the chapter open. My gala bag was cheap fake leather with a loose inner seam I had been meaning to fix for months. Roman took one look at the uneven lining and said, open it. There is nothing in there. Open it, Glady. My fingers were clumsy. Checking. He slid them under the torn edge and felt it. Something smelled hard. Hidden. When I pulled it out, a tiny brass key dropped into my palm and flashed under the penthouse lights. My heartbeat stopped. Roman's gaze went ice cold. That, he said, is why they're not letting you go. The tiny brass key looked harmless in my palm. That was the terrifying part. Roman took it from me with 2 fingers, like it was not metal at all but a fuse already lit. By midnight, his security analyst had run the engraving. 1 deposit box. 1 shell company. 1 downtown private bank that did not ask polite questions if the right people paid enough. He sat across from Roman in his office, my pulse pounding in my throat, while the skyline burned cold outside the glass. So this is real, I said. My voice came out thin anyway. I am not losing my mind. Roman set a file on the desk. You were never losing your mind. Then his gray eyes cut to mine. You were being used. Beat 1 landed hard because hearing the truth did not calm me. It made everything worse. If the USB had been bait, and the key had been hidden in my bag, then someone had picked me before I ever knew there was a game. Beat 2 hit the second my fear turned into anger. We take it to the FBI, I said. Tonight. Roman did not even blink. No, I stood so fast the chair legs scraped the floor. You do not get to keep deciding this for me. Actually, I do. I leaned forward, voice flat. If this box is tied to the company I think it is, then whoever set you up has reach inside law enforcement, inside finance, and possibly inside my house. He stared at him. Your house. My world, he corrected. And right now, you are standing in the middle of it. Beat 3. Knocked the air out of me. He wanted to call him paranoid. He wanted to call him a liar. But too many things were lining up now. The gala. The text. Noah. The hidden key. Then what am I supposed to do? He asked. The words tasted like surrender. Roman's gaze did not soften. Stay where I can see you. The answer made my skin burn. Protective. Possessive. He could not tell where one ended and the other began. Beat 4 arrived in heels and perfume. The penthouse doors opened, and a blonde woman stepped in like she owned every square foot of marble beneath her boots. Elegant coat. Diamond earrings. Political wife smile. She took one look at me and did not bother hiding her contempt. So this is the girl, she said. Roman's expression went colder than I had seen yet. Evelyn. She ignored the warning in his voice and kept her eyes on me. Do you have any idea what kind of mess he is making by hiding you? He rose slowly, humiliated on instinct, furious on impact. I am not being hidden. Evelyn's smile sharpened. That is adorable. Then she looked at Roman and delivered the real blade. By morning, she will not just be your scandal. She will be your weakness. By sunrise, Roman DeLuca had decided his penthouse was no longer safe for me. I did not ask. I did not explain. I just walked into the guest room while I was still standing in yesterday's borrowed sweater and said, "You are coming with me." He folded my arms. That is not a request. That is a relocation order. His face did not change. Call it whatever helps you move faster. Beat 1 started on the drive out of Chicago. The skyline faded behind us, steel and glass giving way to iron gates, frozen hedges, and the kind of estate that looked less like a home and more like a warning. DeLuca property. Private road. Armed cameras every 50 feet. My stomach tightened as the car rolled toward a stone mansion big enough to swallow my entire apartment building whole. You brought me to a fortress, I said. Roman stepped out first and held the door open without warmth. I brought you somewhere harder to breach. That should have sounded safe. It did not. Beat 2 hit the second I crossed the threshold. Roman's mother was already waiting in the foyer, wrapped in cream cashmere and old money judgment. Elena DeLuca looked me over once, slowly, like she was pressing damage to the family name. This is her, she asked. Not hello. Not welcome. Hira's flicked to my boots, my coat, my face. She looks ordinary enough. It rushed into my cheeks. He wanted to walk right back out the door. Roman's voice stayed flat. She is staying here. Elena's smile thinned. Temporary problems have a way of becoming permanent scandals. Beat 3 got worse at dinner. A table for 8. Crystal glasses. 3 relatives I had never met and did not want to. Nobody asked if I was hungry. They asked where I came from, what I did, whether I understood discretion. One of Roman's uncles swirled his wine and said, girls from difficult circumstances tend to confuse rescue with opportunity. He went still. My pulse kicked. And men with too much money confuse cruelty with manners. The room went silent. For 1 second, I thought I had gone too far. Then Roman set down his glass with a quiet click that somehow sounded louder than shouting. Enough, he said. Everyone stopped. It did not defend me gently. It did not soften it. It just looked around the table and said, she is here because I decided she would be. The words should have helped. Instead, they burned. Beat 4 followed me into the hallway after dinner, where I caught up to him before he reached the study. Do not do that again, I snapped. Roman turned slowly. Do what? Talk about me like I am a piece of property you moved into storage. His jaw tightened once. I ended the conversation. No. You ended my right to speak for myself. For the first time that night, something flashed in his eyes. Not killed. Not a palegi. Something harder. In this house, he said quietly, my protection is the only thing keeping you safe. He stared at him, furious enough to shake. Because that was the problem. Every time he protected me, he made me feel smaller. And deep down, I was starting to realize the DeLuca family was not the only thing I needed to survive. The next time Roman told me to get in the car, I almost refused out of pure spite. Almost. Tene. Held up the tiny brass key between 2 fingers and said, if you want answers, come with me. That changed everything. Beat 1 started in silence. No driver this time. No extra conversation. Used Roman behind the wheel, the key in his pocket, and me staring out at downtown Chicago as we pulled into a private underground garage beneath a bank so polished it looked fake. My pulse would not settle. You brought me here after one dinner from hell. He asked. Roman did not look at me. I brought you here because someone hid that key in your bag for a reason. We took a private elevator down. Stainless steel. With a light. No windows. No sense of air. He hated it immediately. Beat 2 hit when the deposit box slid open. Inside was not cash. Not jewelry. Worse. A stack of copied ledger pages. A cheap burner phone. And one photograph. He kicked it up before Roman could stop me. My fingers went numb. The man in the photo was my father. Younger. Smiling once, which already felt strange enough. Beside him stood a man in a dark suit I did not know, but Roman did. He saw it in his face. Who is he? He asked. Roman's jaw locked. A former DeLuca accountant. The room tilted under me. My father knew your family. Roman took the photo from my hand, eyes hard, calculating too fast. Maybe your father knew pieces of my family. That is not the same thing. Beat 3 snapped tight in the parking structure on our way out. Roman had the burner phone and ledger sealed in a case, and I was still trying to breathe around what I had seen when I noticed a black sedan parked crooked across the exit lane. The same second, Roman's posture changed. Stay behind me, he said. He should have argued. He did not. Two men moved at the far end of the concrete level. Not rushing. Just closing. Deliberate. My whole body went cold. Roman caught my wrist and pulled me behind a pillar, one arm cutting across me like a steel bar. Do not move, he said. The command was low. Absolute. He hated how safe it made me feel. Beat 4 ended in the car with my nerves still burning and the city streaking by outside. Roman drove one-handed, the other pressed tight against his shoulder. He stared until I saw it. A dark stain spreading through his black coat. You are hurt. He kept his eyes on the road. It is nothing. That is blood. His voice turned flat. Clyde. He should have backed off. He should have looked away. Instead I stared at the man who had just pulled me behind his body like it was the most natural thing in the world, and one horrible new truth slid into place. The hidden key had not just opened a box. It had opened my father's past. And somehow, Roman DeLuca had been standing much closer to it than either of us had admitted. Roman bled all over his perfect silence. That was the first thing I thought when we got back to the estate. Not about the ledgers. Not about my father's photo. Not even about the man in the garage. Just the dark stain spreading through Roman's coat while he acted like pain was beneath his notice. Beat 1 started the second he stepped out of the car and kept walking. Do not be ridiculous, he said when I followed him inside. He caught his arm anyway. Bad idea. It went still. Not soft. Not gentle. Just still in that dangerous way that made every nerve in my body wake up. You are hurt, I said. I am fine. That is blood, Roman. His eyes dropped to my hand on his sleeve, then back to my face. You should learn when to let go. He swallowed hard but did not move. And you should learn when lying looks stupid. For one long second, I thought he was going to shut me out again. Then he exhaled once, sharp and tired. 5 minutes, he said. Then you leave. Beat 2 carried us into a private sitting room off his wing, where he shrugged off the coat and proved I had been right. The injury was not catastrophic, but it was real. A scrape and a deeper cut at the shoulder, hidden by black fabric and male arrogance. He grabbed the first aid kit from the cabinet before he could stop me. Sit down. A corner of his mouth almost moved. That sounded like an order. Get used to it. Exact. Barely. He cleaned the wound with hands that trembled more than I wanted. Roman did not flinch. That bothered me. Does nothing. Get to you. He muttered. His gaze stayed on me. More things than I prefer. Beat 3 turned quiet in the strangest way. The room was warm. The estate finally silent. My fingers brushed his skin by accident as I taped fresh gauze into place, and the air shifted. Not sweet. Not safe. Just charged. Round in a way I felt all the way down to my ribs. He stepped back too fast. Roman caught my wrist before I could fully move away. Not rough. Just firm. Your father, he said, voice low. I did not know him. He searched his face for a lie and found something worse. Regret. Then why do you look like this matters to you? His grip loosened. Because the last time my family trusted the wrong person, my father died for it. The words landed like cold water. He forgot to breathe. Suddenly Roman's suspicion made terrible sense. Not because he was cruel. Because somewhere under all that control, he was still standing in the wreckage of an old betrayal. Beat 4 should have softened the moment. It almost did. He looked at him. Really looked. The hard jaw. The tired eyes. The man who had built himself into armor and was still bleeding through it. Something in my chest tilted in a direction I did not trust. Roman must have felt it too, because his face shut down all at once. Stood, took one step back, and put the wall between us himself. Do not confuse protection with intimacy, Clyde. The words hit clean. Precise. He should have thanked him for the reminder. Instead I just nodded and walked to the door with my pulse beating in all the wrong places. Back when I reached the hallway, I heard voices around the corner. Elena DeLuca. Another woman. Sharp heels. Sharper tone. The engagement announcement cannot wait much longer, the woman said. I froze. Because even without seeing her face, I already knew exactly who had come to claim Roman back. I found out Roman DeLuca might be promised to another woman the same way I found out everything in his world mattered. By overhearing it behind a half-open door, like I was never supposed to know. Beat 1 started the next morning with a headline someone had left open on a breakfast room tablet. Roman DeLuca spotted leaving Lakeview Hotel with Evelyn Cross. There was a photo. Not intimate. Worse. Polished. Strategic. Evelyn in cream. Roman in black. A perfect match for magazines and boardrooms and families like his. He stared too long. Elena stepped into the room, saw what I was reading, and did not even pretend to be embarrassed. Some unions are larger than feelings, she said, pouring coffee like she had not just dropped a knife into my ribs. Women like Evelyn understand duty. Women like you understand disruption. He looked up slowly. Women like me. Elena gave me a measured smile. Temporary. Beat 2 hit harder because it made too much sense. Roman protecting me. Roman controlling me. Roman refusing softness. Roman telling me not to confuse protection with intimacy. Of course. He had never been anything personal. He was damage control. A scandal he had to hide until his real future was ready for public view. By the time I heard Helena tell a legal advisor, the engagement timing needs to be managed carefully, something inside me snapped clean in half. He did not cry. He got cold. You can stop acting like I owe him gratitude, I said. I know exactly what I am now. Elena's gaze sharpened. Do you? A problem he intends to solve. Beat 3 made me reckless. He went back to my room, locked the door, and called the only person from my old life I thought might still help me. Tessa Morgan. Former roommate. Smart. Loyal. Not part of Roman's world. When she answered, relief hit so hard I almost sat down. Claire? Oh my God, where have you been? I need a ride, I whispered. And I need you not to ask questions. She hesitated just long enough to sting. Then she said, tell me where. He gave her the service gate address. My pulse pounded all afternoon. Every ticking second felt like theft. Beat 4 began at dusk. The estate was shifting into evening quiet when I slipped out through the rear corridor in jeans, sneakers, and a coat I could run in. No laggy. No note. Nothing that made this feel like drama instead of escape. The service gate was 300 yards from the east garden wall. He made it all the way there before the headlights flashed. Relief hit first. Then confusion. They got idled at the curb, but Tessa was not alone. A man stepped out of the passenger side. Dark coat. Broad shoulders. One of the faces from the bank garage. My blood turned to ice. He looked straight at me and smiled like this was exactly where he expected me to be. Which meant Tessa had not come to save me. She had sold me. Tessa did not even look sorry. That was what broke something in me as the man beside her started toward the service gate like I was a package finally ready for pickup. Beat 1 hit hard and fast. Gliding, Tessa called through the cracked car window, voice shaky, too soft, too late. Just listen. You sold me. He backed away from the gate, my pulse slamming so hard I could hear it. The man in the dark coat lifted one hand like he was calming a skittish animal. Nobody wants to hurt you, he said. He almost laughed. That is what people say right before they ruin your life. It took another step. We only need the burner phone. My stomach dropped. Not the USB. Not the key. The phone. Which meant they knew exactly what had come out of the deposit box. Which meant this leak was bigger than I thought. Beat 2 turned the night sharp. He spun and ran along the inside edge of the east wall, gravel cutting under my shoes, cold air burning my throat. Behind me, a car door slammed. Someone shouted my name. No, Tessa. Never Tessa again. He reached the narrow lane that curved toward the old service road and nearly slipped on wet stone. Headlights flared at the far end. Anoter SUV. Black. Moving too fast. My heart stopped. For 1 second, I thought I was trapped between both sides. Then the SUV braked hard and Roman stepped out before it fully settled. Dark coat. Bare hands. Eyes like winter. Get behind me, he said. Beat 3 exploded without anyone shouting. His security team moved in from both sides of the lane. The man from Tessa's car stopped cold. Roman did not raise his voice. He did not need to. If anyone here takes one more step toward Claire, he said, they are taking a step toward me. Even the night seemed to go still. Tessa finally got out of the car, tears already on her face. I did not know it was this serious. He stared at her and felt nothing but ash. Roman did not even spare her a glance. Take her inside, he ordered one of his men. No, I snapped instantly. Do not talk about me like I am a witness in one of your files. His head turned toward me. Slow. Controlled. Dangerous in a whole different way. Beat 4 landed in the silence after the others pulled back. Roman came closer, just enough that I could see the fury he was still holding in place. You ran from protection into a trap, he said. I ran from being managed, I shot back. There is a difference. His jaw tightened. Not when you end up in someone else's hands. He should have thanked him. He should have admitted he had just saved me again. Instead I looked up at the man who kept stepping between me and disaster and said the ugliest truth I had. Maybe being under your protection is just another kind of trap. Roman went very still. And the look in his eyes told me I had not just hit his temper. He had hit the one line he could not forgive. Roman did not come after me that night. That hurt more than if he had slammed the door. Beat 1 began with the silence. Not peaceful silence. Vanishing silence. He was back in the estate, back behind locked doors and watchful staff, but everything had shifted. Tessa was gone. The men at the gate were gone. Roman was somewhere in the house turning fury into strategy, and I was left alone with the one sentence I could not take back. Maybe being under your protection is just another kind of trap. He should have felt righteous. He should have felt strong. Instead I felt shaken raw. By midnight, Luca knocked once and entered without waiting for warmth. Mafia DeLuca wants you in the study. He followed him through hallways that suddenly felt colder than usual. Roman stood by the fireplace with the burner phone on the desk in front of him, his expression unreadable in that way I was starting to hate. Sit, he said. No softness. No argument. He sat anyway. We pulled what we could from the device, he said. Most of it was wiped. He folded my arms. And Roman pressed play. On an audio file. Static. Breathing. Then a voice. Mali. Distorted. The accountant's daughter matters now. Keep the key off sight. And watch inside the house. My whole body went still. Inside the house. He whispered. Roman's eyes locked on mine. You were right about one thing. This is a trap. Just not the one you think. Beat 2 hit when the meaning landed. Not just enemies outside. Not just strangers in parking garages and service lanes. Someone inside this estate had known enough to feed information outward. Someone had known when I ran. Known about the burner phone. Known exactly how to pressure me through Noah. Tessa could not have known where to meet me unless someone gave her the time, I said. Roman gave one slow nod. Or the gate camera schedule. Or the service route. My mouth went dry. So there is a leak in your family. In my house, he corrected. Which is worse? Beat 3 turned the air thinner. He looked around the room as if the walls themselves might answer back. Elena. The staff. Roman's advisors. Evelyn. Even the thought made my chest tighten. Why are you telling me this now? He asked. Roman came around the desk, close enough to make every nerve in me wake up, but not close enough to feel gentle. Because I can lock every door in this estate, he said quietly. I cannot lock the danger out if it is already inside. The honesty of it hit harder than anger. For the first time since the gala, he was not talking to me like I was a problem to contain. It was talking to me like I was standing on the same cracked floor he was. Beat 4 changed everything again. Roman reached past me, opened a folder, and slid a new keycard across the desk. Matte black. Different from the others. From now on, he said, you do not stay in the guest wing. He stared at the card, then at him. Where exactly am I supposed to stay? His face did not move. In the room next to mine. The words struck like a second lock clicking into place. Not because they sounded intimate. They did not. They sounded worse. Closer. Riskier. More dangerous in ways I could not name yet. And somewhere deep in this house, someone was about to find out Roman DeLuca had just moved me inside the last place anyone would dare touch. The lights went out 10 minutes after I moved into the room next to Roman's. Not dim. Not flicked. Dead. 1 second the hallway was all polished wood and gold lamplight. The next, the estate dropped into black silence so complete it felt staged. Beat 1 started with the sound of my own breath. He stepped into the hall, one hand against the wall, pulse kicking hard as distant voices rose somewhere downstairs. Then Roman's voice cut through the dark from a few feet away. Clyde. He froze. I am here, I said, hating how relieved I sounded. A beam of phone light flashed once, then vanished. Do not use your phone, he said. If someone cut the power, I do not want them tracking movement room to room. It reached me a second later, fingers closing around my wrist. Firm. Certain. Come on. We moved through the dark together, fast and close, until he pushed open a heavy door and pulled me inside. Library, he said. No exterior windows. Sapphire. Beat 2 settled in the strangest quiet I had felt since the gala. The backup lights had not kicked in yet, so the room stayed dark except for the blue-gray slice of moonlight slipping through a high transom. Shelves towered around us. Leather. Dust. Old money. Roman let go of my wrist, but the heat of his hand stayed behind. You keep doing that, I murmured. Doing what? Grabbing me like the world will end if I take one wrong step. It was quiet for a second. Sometimes it does. The words landed deeper than they should have. He looked at him, mostly silhouette now, all edges and restraint. My dad used to say not to trust gifts from people who want gratitude in return. Roman leaned against the table beside us. Smart man. He swallowed. Which makes you a problem. A low sound escaped him. Not quite a laugh. I am aware. Beat 3 turned softer without permission. The darkness made honesty easier. Or more dangerous. Why do you care what happens to me? He asked. Because you are in this now, he said. That is not an answer. I exhaled once. Fine. Because I do not like the idea of you getting hurt on my watch. He shook my head. Still not the truth. Another silence. Longer this time. Then Roman said, quieter, Rafi, because I am starting to care what you think of me, and I do not know what to do with that. My heart stumbled. Hard. He should have stepped back. Instead I stood there in the dark, feeling the room tilt around one dangerous sentence. Beat 4 ended the only way it could. The generator kicked on. Light flooded the library all at once. Roman straightened immediately, every soft edge gone like it had never existed. Footsteps pounded down the hall outside. A Wart's voice called through the door. Power loss came from the outer system, sir. Deliberate cut. Roman's face went cold again. Control. Closed. He moved past me and opened the door, already back in command. Back just before he stepped out, he glanced over his shoulder and said, forget what I said. He stared at him, my pulse still beating in the dark he had left behind. Because that was the problem. He did not think I could. Evelyn Cross invited me to brunch the way people invite roadkill off the highway. With a smile. Beat 1 started with a cream-colored envelope placed beside my breakfast plate the next morning, as if nothing about my life had become a controlled disaster. The card stock was thick. Expensive. Humiliating on sight. The Evelyn Cross Foundation requests the pleasure of your presence. He laughed once. Hard. Idly. Roman walked in just as I tossed it back on the table. I am not going. He picked up the card, scanned it, and his face went still in that dangerous way I knew too well now. You were not supposed to see this before I did. That is comforting, I said. Nothing says stability like being scheduled into my own public execution. His jaw tightened. You do not have to go. He should have stopped there. He should have let him shut it down. Instead, pride made the decision for me. No, I said, rising. I am tired of hiding while she talks about me like I am something she can classify. Roman's eyes locked on mine. Glide. If she wants a performance, I said, pulse pounding, she can have one. Beat 2 turned the foundation brunch into exactly what I should have expected. Gold trimmed ballroom. Crystal water. Glasses. Society women dressed like they had never known fear a day in their lives. The moment I stepped in, conversations shifted. Not stopped. Shifted. Thou word me. Evelyn greeted me in pale blue silk with the kind of polished warmth that made my skin crawl. Clyde, I am so glad you came, she said, kissing the air near my cheek like we were old friends. I thought this would help settle the rumors. He almost laughed in her face. How generous. Her smile sharpened by a fraction. We all do what we can for people in difficult situations. There it was. The knife hidden in lace. Beat 3 got uglier once the luncheon began. Evelyn took the podium and turned me into a charity case in front of a room full of cameras. Not by name at first. By implication. A speech about women in crisis. About second chances. About men with influence being vulnerable to manipulation by those they tried to protect. Every sentence landed with my face attached to it. My cheeks burned. My hands shook under the table. Then she lifted her glass and finally looked straight at me. Some women mistake rescue for invitation, she said lightly. A few guests smiled into their champagne. Something in me snapped clean. I stood. Chairs scraping. Pulse roaring. And some women mistake polish for character, I said. The room went dead silent. Evelyn blinked once. Just once. Excuse me. You heard me. My voice shook, but it held. I am not your project. I am not your cautionary tale. And I am not going to sit here while you dress cruelty up as concern. Beat 4 did exactly what Roman had warned me it would do. Phones came up. Cameras turned. The room devoured the moment like it had been starving for it. Evelyn's expression never cracked, which somehow made her more frightening. She set down her glass and smiled that perfect political smile again. How sad, she murmured. I was trying to help. By the time I got back to the estate, the headlines were already spreading faster than I could breathe. Gold digger attacks Evelyn Cross at charity event. Scandal girl melts down in public. He stood in the foyer staring at the first story on a staff member's phone, my stomach dropping through the floor. I'd gone there to stop being humiliated. Instead, I had just handed Evelyn a prettier version of my ruin. Roman did not yell when the headlines hit. That made it worse. By noon, every screen in the estate had some cleaner, cooler version of my humiliation splashed across it, and Roman was nowhere to be found. Beat 1 started with Helena. She found me in the morning room, staring at a headline I could not unread, and gave me the kind of smile women like her saved for funerals and victories. This is why certain women are not built for our world, she said. He should have walked away. Instead I looked her straight in the eye and asked, is that what you tell yourself when people get crushed to keep your world polished? Her face hardened, but before she could answer, Luca stepped into the room. Mafia DeLuca is making a statement. My pulse tripped. About what? Luca only held the door. About you. Beat 2 hit outside DeLuca Logistics headquarters, where cameras already crowded the sidewalk 3 rows deep. Roman stepped out in a black overcoat like he had been born for storms. Not rushed. Not cornered. Controlled. He did not smile for the reporters. He did not offer excuses. He stood at the podium, let the noise peak, then cut through it with one sentence. Claire Bennett is under my personal protection, and any harassment, coercion, or public fabrication directed at her will be treated as deliberate interference in DeLuca affairs. The crowd exploded. Questions flew. Who is she? Is Evelyn Cross no longer involved? Is this personal? Roman never looked away from the cameras. Miss Bennett is not a scandal to be managed, he said. She is not available for speculation. He went cold. Then hot. Then the question hit first. Then disbelief. Then the sick knowledge that he was burning something down to say it. Beat 3 proved I was right. The moment we got back to the estate, Helena was already waiting in the study with 2 board members on speaker and Fury wrapped in silk. Do you understand what you have done? She demanded. Roman did not even take off his coat. Yes. You just jeopardized the Cross Alliance. Then it was never stable. Elena's voice sharpened. That. Alliance protected the legitimate side of this family. Roman's answer came like a blade laid flat on a table. Then build a better one. He stood in the doorway, invisible and central at the same time, while everyone in the room understood what I had cost him. Beat 4 was the worst because it was quiet. That night, after the phone stopped ringing and the house finally went still, I found Roman alone on the terrace outside his office, city lights burning far beyond the estate. You did not have to do that, I said. He kept his gaze on the dark horizon. Yes, I did. My throat tightened. You blew up a major deal because of me. Do not flatter yourself. The words landed cold, but not clean. He turned then, face unreadable again, every soft edge from the blackout library gone. I made a strategic decision. Nothing more. He stared at him, stunned by how fast he could turn sacrifice into distance. He had stood in front of the whole city and chosen my side. Then he came home and made it sound like I meant nothing. He should have been relieved. Instead I stood there with my chest aching and the ugly suspicion rising all over again. If Roman DeLuca had really paid that much to protect me, why did he look like regretting it would be easier than admitting why? The night Roman chose me in public, I should have felt safer. Instead, I found my father's name buried deeper in the DeLuca machine than ever before. Beat 1 started in Roman's study while the estate slept and the last of the press calls finally died. He had left the recovered ledger copies in a locked drawer. He had also underestimated how little sleep I was capable of getting after hearing him call protecting me a strategic decision. He told myself I was only looking for proof. Proof that none of this was personal. Proof that I could still stand on my own feet inside his world. The file I found was older than the others. Payment rats. Sell companies. Quiet donations to police foundations and campaign committees. My pulse slowed when I hit one name twice. Bennett Accounting Services. My father's old business. I read the line again. And again. No, I whispered. No, no, no. The room felt too small. Tall. Warm. Beat 2 came with Elena's voice from the doorway. You should not be touching things you do not understand. He turned so fast the papers slipped in my hand. She stood there in a silk robe like a queen inspecting damage. My father's company is in these records. My voice shook, but only from rage. You knew. Elena's face did not soften. I knew there were transactions routed through many names during a bad year. He stared at her. A bad year? You do not survive a collapse like ours by staying clean. The words hit like acid. People died in those files. Her eyes sharpened. And people survived because of them too. Be careful before you judge an era you know nothing about. Beat 3 arrived with a knock that changed everything. Luca stepped in with a woman I had never seen before. Latte cisties. Grey coat. Taller dice. She stopped the second she saw me. You look exactly like him, she said. Roman came in right behind them, took in the scene, and swore under his breath. "Clyde," he said, too late. The woman extended a trembling hand. "My name is Mara Quinn. He used to work for your father." My knees nearly buckled. "You knew him?" Mara nodded once. "He was trying to hand evidence to a young DeLuca heir before he died." He looked straight at Roman. The air went thin. "What?" Mara swallowed. "There was supposed to be a meeting. And off. I believed one of the DeLuca sons might still do the right thing." Roman's expression turned unreadable, which somehow made it worse. Beat foreshadowed the last of my balance. "Did he make the meeting?" he asked. Mara's silence answered first. Then she said, "No. Your father waited. No one came." I looked at Roman, really looked, at the bloodline, the power, the family name wrapped around every lie that had ruined mine. He stepped toward me once. "Clyde, that was not me. Maybe it was not. Maybe he had been too young. Maybe he had known nothing." Back all I could hear was one truth ripping through everything else. My father had reached toward the DeLucas for justice. And the DeLucas had let him fall. Whatever fragile trust had started growing between Roman and me died the moment I looked at him and saw his last name. Before I saw his face. Beat 1 began in the study, with Mara Quinn still standing there like a witness dragged out of the grave. My voice came out low. "Dan heroes. Did your family know my father was trying to expose those shell accounts?" Roman held my gaze, but something in his expression had changed. "Not killed. Worse. Restrained." "I did not know your father," he said. "That is not what I asked." The room went tight around us. Elena said nothing. Mara said nothing. Roman finally answered in that cold, measured tone that always made me feel like he was deciding how much truth I could handle. "My father kept certain matters buried to protect the family." The word slammed into me. "So that is a yes." "It is not that simple." He laughed once. "Sarp. Hit. It never is for people like you." Beat 2 hit when I stopped seeing Roman as the man who had stood in front of cameras for me and started seeing the machine behind him again. "You knew enough to hide the ledgers," I said. "You knew enough to track the leaks. You knew enough to lock me in your house. But when it comes to my father, suddenly everything is vague." Roman took one step toward me. "Clyde." No, I backed away before he could touch me. "Do not say my name like that." His jaw tightened. "You are twisting this." "Ami." My throat burned. "My father reached for your family because he thought someone might do the right thing. And instead he got silence." That sounds exactly like the DeLucas I have met. Beat 3 turned ugly because Roman stopped trying to soften it. "You want the truth," he said. "Fine. Familias like mine survive by making choices other people call immoral after the fact." He stared at him. "That is your defense." "It is not a defense. Eat this reality." The words hit like a door slamming. All at once, every act of protection, every command, every sacrifice he had made for me warped into something darker. Not because they were false. Because maybe he really did believe he could protect me while standing on top of everything that had destroyed my father. "You protected me to control the damage," I said. "You kept me close because I could blow up your life." Roman's eyes flashed. "If that were true, I would have handed you over to lawyers, not put my name on the line for you." "Or maybe," I shot back, shaking now, "keeping me under your protection was the cleanest way to contain me." Beat 4 broke whatever was left between us. Roman went very still. "I have never lied to you about what I am." The quiet in his voice hurt more than anger. "No," I whispered. "You just waited until I was trapped before letting me figure it out." For one second, I thought he might finally say something real. Something that could pull us back from this edge. Instead he looked at me with that terrible control and said, "Believe what you want, Clyde. But do not confuse my silence about the past with a lack of intention now." He hated that part of me still heard the care buried under the cruelty. He hated even more that I no longer knew if it mattered. Because when I walked out of that study, I did not feel like the woman Roman DeLuca was protecting. He felt like the daughter of a dead man who had made the mistake of trusting his family twice. Noah disappearing felt worse than every headline, every threat, every DeLuca lie put together. Beat 1 started with his empty phone on the practice field bench. Luca had driven me there after the school called to say my brother had left early, and I knew something was wrong the second I saw his gym bag still on the ground. Noah never left his cleats. Never. He grabbed his phone with shaking hands and found one new message already open on the screen. Bring the ledger if you want your brother back. No police. No DeLuca. My blood turned to ice. No, I whispered, then louder. No. Roman stepped up beside me, took one look at the screen, and his entire face went flat. Dangerous. Control. This is bait, he said. He spun on him so fast my vision blurred. That is my brother. And whoever sent this knows exactly how to make you stop thinking. The words hit because they were true. He hated him for being right. He hated myself more for needing him to be wrong. Beat 2 turned the panic into war. Back at the estate, Roman spread the copied ledgers and burner phone records across the study table while I paced like I could outrun terror. We verify first, he said. We trace the route. We do not hand them original leverage blind. He slammed both hands on the desk. You do not get to optimize my brother like this is one of your business deals. His has lifted to mine. Cold. Hard. And you do not get to throw yourself into a kidnapping setup because you are angry at me. My chest burned. If you had not spent the last week deciding what truth I was allowed to hear, maybe I would still trust you enough to wait. That landed. He saw it. One crack in all that control. Then it vanished. Glide, he said quietly, if you walk into their hands with evidence, you will not save Noah. You will just give them more to use. Beat 3 came with the second message. A photo this time. Noah in the back seat of a car, scared but unharmed, a timestamp from 20 minutes earlier. Underneath, one line. Midnight. Old River Warehouse. Come alone. My knees nearly gave out. Roman caught my arm before I hit the chair. You are not going, he said. He ripped free. Watch me. I moved faster, stepping between me and the study door. I mean it. So do I. My voice shook so hard it barely sounded like mine. You lost the right to order me around when I realized your protection always comes with a cage. His jaw locked. I am trying to keep you alive. Then find another way, I snapped. Because if Noah thinks I did not come for him, that will kill me first. Beat 4 was the kind of mistake people make when fear sounds more honest than logic. He waited until the house settled. Until Luca rotated to the east side and Elena's wing went dark and the corridor outside my room fell silent. Then I took the burner phone, one copied ledger packet, and my coat, and slipped out through the service stairs with my heart pounding so hard it hurt. No note. No apology. No asking permission from a man I no longer knew how to trust. The night air off the river cut straight through me as I slid behind the wheel of a spare staff car and drove toward the old warehouse district with Noah's photo burning into my mind. Roman had said this was bait. Maybe it was. But if my brother was in that trap, then I was already in it too. And by the time Roman realized I was gone, I would either be bringing Noah home, or walking straight into the worst mistake of my life. The old river warehouse looked exactly like the kind of place people lied in before they vanished from their own lives. Beat 1 started the second I killed the engine and stepped into the cold. The building sat half dark against the water, rusted steel and broken windows staring back at me like dead eyes. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the burner phone. Noah. I called, hating how small my voice sounded in all that empty space. No answer. Used the slap of river wind against corrugated metal and the heartbeat of my own pulse. He pushed through the side door anyway. The main floor was almost bare. One hanging work light. One folding chair. No Noah. My stomach dropped so fast it hurt. Then a man stepped out from behind a support beam and looked at the packet in my hand. You came alone, he said. He tightened my grip. Where is my brother? I smiled like that was not the question that mattered. Proof first. Beat 2 turned the fear into clarity. Trap. Roman had been right. Again. The second man came in from my left. Not close enough to touch. Close enough to block. He backed up one step and hit cold metal. The first man lifted a hand toward the burner phone. Set it down, Glide. Hearing my name from his stranger's mouth made my skin crawl. I want Noah. My voice cracked, but I pushed on. You show me he is safe, or you get nothing. The first man's face hardened. You are not in a position to negotiate. My heart slammed. He knew that. They knew that. And still some stupid, stubborn piece of me kept talking because if I stopped, panic would take over. Then tell me this, I shot back. Why fake a kidnapping if all you wanted was the evidence? The question landed. Just enough. A flicker in his eyes. I paused too long to miss. Then he said, you were always the easier lever. Beat 3 hit with motion. Fast. Loud. Final. Acras. At the loading entrance. Shouted orders. Feet pounding on concrete. Both men turned at once, and Roman DeLuca came through the side of the warehouse like the night had split open and dropped him there. Dark coat. Flat ice. Fury held on a knife edge. Step away from her, he said. I did not shout. I did not need to. His security team fanned out behind him, sealing the exits. One of the men near me swore and moved for the packet in my hand. Roman crossed the distance before I could even breathe again, pulling me sharply behind him. One arm braced across my front. A shield. A cache. A rescue. He did not know anymore. Are you hurt? He asked without looking back. No, my voice came out thin. Noah is not here. Roman's jaw tightened once. I know. The words punched through me. You knew. I knew this location was wrong. It turned his head just enough for me to hear the anger under the control. I came because you were here. Beat 4 left me shaking for a different reason. Roman's men had the situation locked down now, but one of the strangers laughed once as he was forced back toward the far wall. You still do not get it, do you? He said, looking past Roman straight at me. The woman in the house signed off on everything. Silence hit harder than the river wind. Roman went still in front of me. Not confused. Not surprised. Just colder. I stared at the man, then at Roman's rigid shoulders, and felt a new kind of dread slide into place. Not a faceless enemy. Not a nameless leak. A woman. Inside the DeLuca house. Which meant the person helping destroy my life was not circling outside Roman's world anymore. She was already living inside it. Roman was furious by the time we got back to the car, and somehow that hurt more than the trap. Beat 1 started before the doors even shut. What part of do not go alone sounded optional to you? He snapped, voice low and lethal in the dark interior. He turned on him just as fast. What part of that is my brother did you not understand? My chest was still heaving. My hands still shook. You do not get to stand there and act like strategy matters more than Noah. Romance. Stare cut straight through me. I do not care about the evidence more than your brother. Really? He laughed once, broken and sharp. Because every time I panic, you hand me a plan instead of the truth. The words hit. He saw it. A crack in all that control. Beat 2 came quieter. Worse. The SUV rolled through the sleeping city while river lights flashed across Roman's face in cold stripes. I stared out the window for a long second, then said, I was not afraid of losing the ledger tonight. My pulse tripped. I finally looked at me. No wall. No polished cruelty. Just exhaustion and something raw enough to scare me. I was afraid of losing you. The car went dead silent. He forgot how to breathe. Roman DeLuca, the man who turned protection into orders and silence into weapons, had just handed me the truth with nowhere to hide it. My throat tightened. Roman, he looked away first. Of course he did. Do not make me repeat it. Beat 3 broke the moment before I could. Luca's phone rang from the front seat. He listened, cursed under his breath, then turned halfway around. We found Noah. Every muscle in my body locked. Where? Not with kidnappers, Luca said. Chicago juvenile intake. He bolted from school after someone told him men were watching him. He ran, got picked up for trespassing behind a closed rec center, gave a false name, then panicked. Relief hit so hard it hurt. Then confusion followed right behind it. So he was not taken. Roman's jaw tightened. He was manipulated. Beat 4 settled over me slowly, like bruising from the inside out. Noah had been scared into disappearing. He had been lured into a trap. Someone had staged the whole thing knowing exactly which fear would move me faster than reason ever could. He pressed a hand over my mouth and stared at the passing lights. Roman's voice came quieter this time. Clyde. He looked at him. Really looked. The anger was still there. So was the control. But now I could see the thing beneath both. Fair. For me. That should have made everything easier. It did not. Because if Roman had finally told me the truth about why he came, then the next question was even more dangerous. What was I supposed to do with the man who terrified me, protected me, and had just admitted I was the one thing he could not afford to lose? The first time I saw Noah after the warehouse mess, I almost cried from relief. The second time he opened his mouth, I understood just how carefully someone had been steering my life. Beat 1 started in a private conference room at the Juvenile Intake Center. Noah looked exhausted. Embarrassed. 16 and trying too hard not to look scared in front of me. He sat across from him and took his hands anyway. Tell me exactly what happened. He glanced at Roman first. Not for permission. For measurement. That hurt in a way I did not have time to unpack. A woman found me outside school, he said. Not the same blonde one. Older. Nice voice. She said she worked with a family charity office and that men connected to mom's hospital bills were watching me. My stomach tightened. What did she say? Noah swallowed. She said if I went home, I might lead them straight to you. She told me to stay off my phone and wait for instructions. Roman went still beside me. Noah kept talking. Then some guy started following me near the bus stop. He freaked out and ran. Relief and rage twisted together so hard it made me dizzy. Noah had not disappeared because he was reckless. He had been handled. Beat 2 hit when the details started lining up with ugly precision. Family charity office, I repeated. Roman's gaze shifted to mine. We were thinking the same thing now. The Cross Foundation. Elena's boards. The glossy world of society, women who smiled in public and arranged damage in private. Did she give a name? Roman asked. Noah shook his head. No. But she had one of those fancy event badges clipped inside her coat. Gold lettering. My pulse jumped. He had seen those badges before. At Evelyn's brunch. On volunteers. On women who carried trays and watched everything. This was organized, I said. Not random. Not street level. Roman gave one hard nod. It never was. Beat 3 arrived with Mara Quinn, because apparently my life had lost all interest in gentle timing. Luca escorted her into the room 20 minutes later with a folder clutched to her chest in dread. Already written all over her face. She sat, looked at Noah once, then at me. I remembered something after I left the estate, she said. Back when your father was gathering evidence, he was terrified of one particular channel. My throat went dry. What channel? Mara opened the folder. All invoices. Foundation gala receipts. Grant routing memos. Women's civic boards. The wives, she said softly. Not because they were weak. Because they were invisible. Men signed the public deals. Women moved the clean money through charities and hospital networks. I stared at the pages and felt the whole shape of the conspiracy shift. Not one corrupt man in a dark office. A network. Ballast. Social. Protected by reputation. You think one of them helped bury my father? He asked. Mara looked sick. I think one of them helped make sure the right people stayed protected when he stopped cooperating. Beat 4 cut deepest because it turned suspicion into blood. Roman stood and paced once, controlled even now, but I could see the pressure building under his skin. My mother sat on 2 of these boards, he said. He looked up at him sharply. Elena? It did not answer fast enough. That was answer enough. She may not have known the full chain, he said at last. Or she may have told herself she did not. The room went silent. Noah looked between us, confused and scared. He could barely hear anything past the roar in my ears. Not a woman. Women. Not one lie. A system of them. And right at the center of it, standing where grief and power overlapped, was a possibility I was not ready to touch but could not stop seeing. If Helena DeLuca had signed even one thing that helped bury my father, then Roman and I were no longer just standing on opposite sides of a scandal. We were standing on opposite sides of blood. Roman did not let me into the room when he confronted his mother. That should have made me feel safer. Instead, it made me feel like the truth was happening 10 feet away with my life at the center of it and no right to witness any of it. Beat 1 started outside Helena DeLuca's private sitting room, where the door stayed shut and every second scraped across my nerves like sandpaper. He could not hear every word. Just fragments. Roman's voice, low and hard. Elena's, sharper than I had ever heard it. Then one sentence came through clean enough to freeze my blood. I signed what they put in front of me because your father said the family would collapse without it. He stopped breathing. The door opened a few inches later. Roman stepped out first. His face looked carved from stone. Elena remained behind him, pale but upright, still wrapped in dignity like it could save her. Tell me, I said, because my voice was the only thing I had left. Roman's eyes found mine. She did not order your father silenced. The relief should have landed. He did not. But he pressed. Elena answered for him. But I signed off on foundation transfers and hospital grants that helped bury the same accounts he was trying to expose. Beat 2 hit harder because she did not even sound defensive. Just tired. I never knew his name, Helena said. Not then. He knew numbers. Pressure. They meant telling me the family would burn if I did not move money where they needed it to go. He stared at her. And that makes it better. No, she said quietly. It makes it true. The honesty of it sickened me more than denial would have. Roman turned toward her, all restraint and fury. You told me the charity boards were clean. Elena lifted her chin. I told myself they were clean enough. The silence that followed felt like something sacred breaking. Beat 3 made the fracture final. Elena looked at Roman, not me. End this, she said. Whatever you think this is with that girl, end it now. The board is already unstable. The Cross family is waiting for weakness. If you keep choosing her over the family, they will tear your position apart. Roman's jaw locked. Claire is not a bargaining chip. Elena's expression hardened. No. She is a liability. He flinched before I could stop myself. Roman did not. Then the family can adjust. Do not be naive, Helena snapped. There is no DeLuca future that includes her. Beat 4 was the moment everything shifted. Roman looked at his mother for a long second, and when he spoke again, his voice was quiet enough to be devastating. Then there is no DeLuca future I want that does not. Elena went still. So did I. No poetry. No confession. Used a line drawn so hard it changed the shape of the room. It turned from her then and crossed to me, not touching, not softening, just standing close enough that I could feel the fallout coming. Being him, Helena spoke one last time. If you do this, Roman, the family will not forgive you. I never looked back. That makes 2 of us. And standing there between the son who had just chosen against blood and the mother who had helped destroy mine, I understood the next threat was no longer hidden in ledgers or whispers. It was war inside the house. I should have trusted the part of me that still expected Roman's world to punish hope. Beat 1 started with a half-open door and my name spoken like logistics. I was coming down the upstairs corridor when I heard Roman's voice in the study with his lawyer. Calm. Control. Fatal. If the pressure keeps building, I move her out of state tonight. He stops cold. My pulse stumbled. The lawyer said something too low to catch, then Roman again, sharper this time. No press trail. No board visibility. Quiet relocation until this settles. Quiet relocation. My stomach turned. After everything. After the warehouse. After his mother. After him drawing a line against his own family. This was the answer? Not stand beside me. Not fight with me. Remove me. Pack up the scandal and ship it somewhere safe and silent until the DeLucas could breathe again. He should have walked in and made him say it to my face. Instead, I did what hurt people do best. He listened to the worst part and let it become the whole truth. Beat 2 made it easier to believe. Evelyn's message was waiting on the private phone Luca had given me. One attachment. One polished draft statement. Roman DeLuca has ended a temporary protective arrangement involving Claire Bennett, a private citizen caught in an ongoing legal matter. My hands went numb. Temporary. Protective arrangement. As if I had been a problem with an expiration date. Beneath it, Evelyn added one line of her own. It always cleans up eventually. He stared at the screen until the words blurred. It should have enraged me. Instead it hollowed me out. Because the cruelest part was how plausible it sounded in Roman's world. Beat 3 turned grief into motion. If Roman was planning to move me out quietly, then I was done waiting for powerful people to decide which version of the truth the world got to hear. I took copies of the ledger pages Mara had verified, the burner phone records, and the charity routing memos. Enough to hurt. Enough to matter. Not enough to destroy everything if I was wrong. When Roman knocked once on my door an hour later, I stayed silent until his footsteps faded. Then I slipped out through the back stairs with a coat over one arm and the evidence tucked flat against my ribs. The contact I chose this time was not a friend. Not family. An investigative journalist Mara trusted. Neutral. Public. Harder to bury. Beat 4 hit in the car as I pulled away from the estate gates and watched the mansion disappear in the rearview mirror. My chest ached so hard I could barely breathe around it. Not because I was leaving Roman. Because some part of me had wanted him to stop me by telling the truth before I had to choose against him again. It did not. Or maybe he never got the chance. By the time my phone lit up with Roman's name across the screen, I was already halfway to downtown and too hurt to answer. Let him call. Let him realize too late that if he planned to send me away quietly, he should have moved faster. Because I was done being protected in secret. And if telling the truth blew up what was left between us, then maybe it deserved to. The hotel lounge looked too elegant for betrayal. That should have warned me. Beat 1 started with the journalist's smile. Daniel Reed stood when I approached, offered coffee, and kept his voice low enough to feel safe. Miss Bennett, if what you brought is real, this could blow wide open. My fingers tightened around the envelope in my bag. It is real. I sat, pulse pounding, every muscle still tight from ignoring Roman's calls the entire drive downtown. Daniel glanced once toward the lobby, then back to me. Before we go on record, I need to know how exposed you are. He almost laughed. You do not have enough time for that answer. He started to say something else, but his expression changed first. Not panic. Recognition. My blood went cold before I even turned. Beat 2 arrived in pale silk and perfect timing. Evelyn Cross stepped into the lounge like she owned the air, flanked by 2 private security men and a lawyer carrying a leather portfolio. Glide, she said warmly, as if we were meeting for lunch instead of war. Daniel stood too fast. I was told this would be confidential. Evelyn did not look at him. You were told many things, Mr. Reed. Some of them even true. He stood, chair scraping hard against marble. You set this up. Hair's smile deepened. No. Jewel did. He simply knew you would come here once you felt sufficiently abandoned. The word hit exactly where she meant it to. Beat 3 turned the room into a cage. Evelyn slid a document across the table. Sign this, she said. You publicly state that you exaggerated your involvement, misunderstood private security measures, and fabricated parts of the financial story under emotional pressure. He stared at her. You want me to call myself a liar? I want you to survive this with what little dignity remains. Her voice dropped. Roman cannot protect you from every direction now. Not from the board. Not from the press. Not from the people who will ask why a girl like you thought she could drag old money into the light and walk away clean. He felt humiliated all over again. Not because she was stronger. Because for one awful second, I heard the same future I had imagined after overhearing Roman in the study. Quiet removal. Controlled damage. My hand brushed the evidence in my bag. You never loved him, I said. Evelyn laughed softly. Love. Claire, I wanted access. Influence. The DeLuca name in a room before I entered it. Roman was useful. You were accidental. Beat 4 hit with cameras. He noticed them too late. 2 near the bar. 1 by the entrance. Phones already angled toward us. If I signed, they would bury me alive with my own name on the paper. If I refused, they would turn this into another public spectacle. Evelyn saw the calculation in my face and leaned closer. Choose fast. The next voice cut through the room before I could answer. Cold. Familiar. Furious. She does not sign anything. He turned so hard my breath caught. Roman stood at the entrance in a dark coat, eyes flat with the kind of controlled fury that made everyone else in the lounge look suddenly smaller. He had found me. And judging by the cameras, by Evelyn's smile, by the envelope in my bag and the statement on the table, he had found me just in time to watch everything explode in public. He had spent weeks being talked about. Accused. Protected. Moved. Judged. Cornered. So when the cameras turned toward me in that hotel lounge, I stopped waiting for Roman or Evelyn or anyone else to decide what I was. Beat 1 started with my own voice. He stepped past the unsigned statement on the table and faced the phones aimed at me like weapons. My name is Claire Bennett, I said, pulse hammering but steady enough to carry. I was publicly accused of theft, privately threatened, and repeatedly pressured to stay quiet about financial records tied to hospital grants and shell companies. Danielle Reed looked stunned. Evelyn looked furious for the first time in her polished life. I was not rescued because I was weak, I went on. I was targeted because someone thought I would be easy to shame. The room held still around me. They were wrong. Beat 2 shifted the ground under all of us. Roman moved to my side, not in front of me this time. Not blocking. Not claiming. Beside me. That difference landed harder than anything he could have said. He gave one sealed evidence case to his counsel, who had arrived behind him with 2 legal witnesses. This contains verified copies of the ledger pages, burner phone records, and routing memos relevant to the ongoing matter, Roman said. His voice was clipped. Public. Precise. They go into protected legal custody now. Evelyn's lawyer stepped forward immediately. There is no verified chain on any of this. There is now, Roman replied. The calm in his voice made the room colder. Beat 3 came from the doorway, where Mara Quinn appeared holding a second folder to her chest like it weighed more than paper should. Len. Better fetch these 2, she said. Every head turned. She crossed the lounge with trembling hands and laid down original signature copies. Foundation approvals. Transfer authorizations. Hospital routing records. He looked down and felt sick. Then another voice cut through the room. Elena. They are real. She stood at the entrance, pale and proud and visibly older than she had looked even yesterday. Evelyn's face finally cracked. You cannot be serious. Elena ignored her. Her gaze found me first, then Roman. I did not know the names of every life those papers touched, she said. But I signed transfers that helped hide the accounts. That part is mine. The silence that followed was brutal. Beat 4 detonated everything left standing. Reporters began shouting questions. Daniel called his editor. Evelyn stepped back like the floor itself had betrayed her. He should have felt triumphant. Instead I felt raw. Exposed. Stripped all over again, just in a different light. Roman turned toward me then, and for once there was no control in his face. Just relief. Just cost. He had finally said my own name out loud in a room built to erase it. The evidence was out. The lies were cracking. Elena had confessed enough to break the wall of denial for good. But as cameras flashed and legal witnesses closed around the table, one truth settled harder than victory. We had not just told the truth. We had set fire to Roman DeLuca's world in public. And there was no taking that back. The truth did not feel like victory the next morning. It felt expensive. Beat 1 started with the board call. Roman took it in the study with the door open this time, maybe because there was nothing left to hide, maybe because hiding had finally cost too much. He stood in the hallway and listened anyway. Not to betray him. To understand the size of what I had helped ignite. Pending internal review, your succession authority is suspended effective immediately, one voice said through the speaker. Another followed, colder. The market opened down 9 points. Investors want distance. Roman did not argue. That was the part that hurt. He just said, noted. No panic. No begging. No scrambling to save. The title that had shaped his entire life. When the call ended, the silence rang louder than the voices had. He stepped into the room and found him staring at the city beyond the glass like it belonged to someone else now. They froze you out, I said softly. Roman's mouth barely moved. Temporarily. But the word landed like loss anyway. Beat 2 turned that loss real. Every screen in the house carried some version of the same headline. Aid in crisis. DeLuca board distances itself from Roman. Analistas talked about credibility. Legacy. Stability. Words rich people used when they wanted to dress panic in cleaner clothes. My throat tightened. This is because of me. Roman turned then, sharp enough to stop that sentence where it stood. No woman, do not do that. His voice stayed calm, but I heard the fracture underneath. Do not reduce this to you standing in the wrong room at the wrong time. The rot was already here. You just forced light on it. He should have felt relieved. Instead I felt stripped bare by how easily he refused the excuse that would have made hating myself simpler. Beat 3 came quieter. More dangerous. He found him alone on the terrace after sunset, coat open to the cold, tie gone, air in name only and somehow more himself than I had ever seen him. Why did you really do it? He asked. Why let it all burn? Roman looked at me for a long second. No command. No armor. Because this time I wanted to choose something I could still live with after the fallout. My pulse stumbled. Me. He shook his head once. The truth. Juto. But not as property. Not as damage control. Not even as protection. His voice dropped. As a choice. The words hit harder than any claim he had ever made. Beat 4 changed the meaning of everything that came before. He had spent weeks fighting the way Roman protected me because it always felt like a cage. But standing there with his power stripped down and his future cracking under him, I finally saw the difference. It was not holding on to me to own me anymore. It was standing in the blast radius beside me because he had chosen not to lie. He should have answered him. He should have said something brave and clean. Uncertain. Instead I just looked at the man who had lost the title built for him and somehow become more dangerous to my heart without it. Because if Roman DeLuca could choose truth over power, then the next question was the one I was not ready for. What was I supposed to do with a man I could finally see clearly? The first clean thing to happen after all that wreckage was Noah getting his scholarship back without anyone whispering the name DeLuca over it. Beat 1 started in the principal's office at his school, where the athletic director slid a new letter across the desk and smiled like this was ordinary good news instead of the first miracle that had not come tied to fear. Independent donor, he said. No conditions. Full coverage. Noah looked at me, stunned. You did this. He shook my head before the lie could even form. No, and for once, that answer felt like relief instead of helplessness. The same week, my mother's treatment plan got approved through a legitimate patient fund with every bill itemized, every phone call direct, every signature clean. No hidden men. No private security. No invisible strings wrapped around our lives. I should have felt grateful. Instead I felt unsteady. Because after weeks of surviving inside Roman's power, I was finally standing in something safer. And I did not know what that made us now. Beat 2 hit outside my old apartment building 3 days later. He had moved back in that morning. Sammy narrow stairwell. Sammy chipped paint. Sammy cracked mailbox downstairs. Esmal. Mine. Anist. When I stepped outside with a bag of groceries on one arm, Roman was leaning against a black sedan at the curb, no convoy, no guards, no storm of authority around him. Used Roman in a dark coat, looking more tired and more real than I had ever seen him. My pulse betrayed me instantly. You found me. One corner of his mouth moved. You moved back to the address on your driver's license. He took a wild guess. Beat 3 came in the simplest way possible. It held out a small envelope. Your phone. Your apartment keys. The copies of the records tied to your father. He stared at them in his hand and did not move. Why are you giving me all these? Roman's gaze stayed on mine. Steady. Careful. Because none of it should ever have been kept from you longer than necessary. The honesty of it hurt. Then helped. Then hurt again. He took the envelope slowly. Our fingers brushed for half a second. Enough to light up every nerve I had been trying to discipline into silence. Beat 4 was the part one knew I would remember. Roman stepped back after I took the envelope, like he was forcing space into existence on purpose. Claire, he said, voice low, stripped of command. If you stay near me now, it cannot be because I made the choice for you. I am done locking doors and calling it protection. My throat tightened. I looked at the building behind me, then back at me. If you walk away, I will let you. If you stay, it has to be because you choose it. There it was. Not a claim. Not an order. The one thing I had been demanding from him since the ballroom and never thought he would learn how to give. Choice. It turned then, like he meant to leave me with it untouched, and panic flared through me so fast it almost felt like loss. Because after everything Roman DeLuca had taken, broken, protected, and sacrificed, the most dangerous thing he had ever placed in my hands was not evidence. It was freedom. And I had no idea what I was going to do with it. Choosing Roman did not feel like falling. It felt like standing still long enough to tell the truth. Beat 1 started the next evening when I found him exactly where I knew I would. Outside the small lakefront chapel his family funded every winter, hands in his coat pockets, face turned toward the water like he was giving me the space to leave again if I wanted. I looked up when he heard my steps and did not move closer. That mattered. You came, he said. He stopped a few feet away. Do not make that sound bigger than it is. A faint, tired smile touched his mouth. I will try. My pulse was all over the place, but I forced myself to hold his gaze. I still hate the way this started. I hate the penthouse. I hate the orders. I hate how many times you decided my life for me before. You learned how to ask. The words landed one by one. Roman took every single one without interrupting. You should, he said quietly. I do too. Beat 2 hit harder because I had not expected that answer. No defense. No excuse. No polished DeLuca logic turning harm into necessity. Just truth. You frightened me, I said. Sometimes you still do. Roman nodded once. I know. My throat tightened. And I hated that the safest place I had was with the man who made me feel trapped. I looked away for a second, then back at me. Clyde, if I could undo the beginning, I would. His voice dropped. I cannot. The only thing I can do now is refuse to repeat it. Beat 3 softened because there was nowhere left to hide from what was also true. He let out a shaky breath and looked past him at the dark water. You were also the first person who stood in front of the machine trying to crush me, I admitted. The first one who did not ask me to shrink, smile, and make it easier for everyone else. Roman went still. Completely still. You do not owe me anything for that. I know. He looked back at him. That is why I am saying it. The wind off the lake cut through my coat, but the cold barely registered anymore. You were wrong in the beginning. Deeply. Arrogantly. Completely wrong. A rough half-laugh escaped him. That sounds accurate. And somewhere in the middle, I said, pulse pounding now, you changed. Beat 4 was the truth I had been circling ever since the ballroom. I will never belong to you, I said. The words hung there between us, clear and final. Roman's expression did not crack. It just answered, you should not. That hit me harder than any claim ever had. He stepped closer then. Not enough to make this easy. Just enough to make it real. But I might stand beside you, I said. If you can live with the difference. Roman looked at me like I had just handed him something breakable and priceless at the same time. Clyde, he said, voice low, un guardet, that is the only answer worth having. It did not reach for me. It did not close the distance I had not offered yet. And somehow that restraint told me more than any promise could. Abby. For the first time since Roman DeLuca said I was under his protection, I was not standing inside his decision. He was standing inside my own. The fallout did not come like thunder. It came like paperwork, headlines, resignations, and the strange quiet that follows when powerful people finally stop pretending nothing happened. Beat 1 started with Evelyn Cross. I saw her name on every screen in the teacher's lounge the morning I went back to work. Witness tampering. Coercive reputation management. Interference with an active financial inquiry. The language was clean. Clinical. Almost too clean for the damage she had spent months dressing up as elegance. One of the other teachers looked up from her phone and said, "Can you believe someone that polished was doing all that?" He kept stacking music folders with steady hands and answered, "Yes. Because now I could. Because women like Evelyn did not need to shout to destroy people. They only needed rooms full of witnesses who mistook poise for innocence." Beat 2 hit later that week when Helena DeLuca made her statement. Not to me. Not privately. Publicly. She stepped down from every civic board tied to the old Shell network and announced a restitution fund for families affected by the hospital grant laundering system. He watched the press conference from my apartment couch with Noah half asleep at one end and my mother knitting silently at the other. Elena looked older. Smaller somehow. Still proud, but no longer hiding behind polished language. Silence is also participation, she said into the microphones. The words settled heavy in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not even close. Bad consequence. Real consequence. And for the first time since my father died, the people who helped bury the truth were no longer standing above it untouched. Beat 3 belonged to Roman. The board offered him a path back faster than I expected. Temporary reinstatement. Quiet restoration. A careful return to the air everyone assumed he would always become. It turned it down. I am not inheriting a clean story I did not help clean, he told me over coffee in a diner halfway between my apartment and the temporary office he had leased. Downtown. No estate. No convoy. Just Roman in a charcoal sweater with legal folders spread beside his mug. I am rebuilding the legitimate side from the ground up. He looked at him for a long second. That sounds exhausting. A faint smile touched his mouth. It sounds honest. Beat 4 was the part that made everything feel possible. I went back to teaching full-time and used a transparent community arts grant to launch an after-school music program for kids who could not afford lessons. No hidden donors. No backdoor favors. Every dollar accounted for. The first afternoon I unlocked the classroom for sign-ups, Roman showed up carrying 2 boxes of second-hand music stands he had sourced from a closed conservatory auction. "These came with receipts," he said dryly. He laughed before I could stop myself. It felt new. Easy. Plan. He set the boxes down, looked around the bright little room, and asked, "Where do you want them?" Not where should they go. Not what was best. What do you want? That difference still hit me every time. He pointed to the back wall, and Roman moved without another word, fitting into my world without trying to own it. Watching him there, sleeves rolled once, handling ordinary things with those once dangerous hands, I understood the ending was no longer about surviving him or his world. It was about what could be built after the wreckage, when truth had already taken what it was owed. And standing in that classroom full of sunlight and scratched linoleum and honest beginnings, I realized there was only one thing left to learn. What Roman and I looked like when no one was chasing us anymore. The last time anyone asked Roman DeLuca if he was here to protect me, I finally got to answer the question with him instead of against him. Beat 1 started in the school auditorium, 20 minutes before the first kids from my new music program were supposed to walk on stage. The place smelled like dust, old curtains, and nervous energy. He was straightening sheet music with shaking hands when Noah leaned in from backstage and grinned. "You are going to wear a groove into that floor." He exhaled a laugh. "I am trying not to throw up in front of children and donors." "You are going to be great," he said, then glanced toward the back doors. "Also, your extremely intense boyfriend just got here." He turned too fast and caught sight of Roman slipping into the last row in a dark coat, trying and failing to look like a man who belonged in the background. My pulse shifted immediately. Not fear anymore. No te intención. Just awareness. Plan. Chosen. Beat 2 hit after the recital, when parents were milling around with paper cups and folding chairs scraped across the gym floor. A board member from the Community Arts Fund stopped beside us, smiling at Roman like she was still trying to place him. "So you are the one helping protect this program?" she asked. A year ago, that word would have made my spine lock. Roman glanced at me first. That mattered. Every time, it still mattered. Then he answered in that calm voice that used to feel like a cage and now felt like a door left open. "Only if she wants me to be." The room seemed to go quiet around that sentence. He looked at him and felt something in me settle all the way down. Because that was it. The whole difference. It was still the man who would step in front of danger without hesitation. But he was no longer the man who confused saving me with owning me. Beat 3 closed the story the only way it ever could have closed. He crossed the distance between us and took his hand first. No pressure. No performance. Just choice. Roman's fingers tightened around mine like he understood exactly what I was giving and exactly why it mattered. "I do," I said, answering the board member, answering him, answering the girl I had been in that ballroom all those months ago. I wanted his protection now, but not because I was trapped, frightened, or outmatched. Because I trusted the man offering it. Because he had learned the difference between control and care. Because somewhere between the lies, the ledgers, the headlines, and the firestorm his family survived, Roman had stopped saying I was his to protect and started asking who I wanted to be. It lifted our joined hands just slightly, not possessive, not claiming, just present. "Then I am here," he said. Simply. Steady. Enough. And standing there in a noisy school auditorium with my family nearby, my students laughing backstage, and the most dangerous man I had ever known holding my hand like it was a promise instead of a sentence, I realized the story had ended exactly where it should. Not with me hidden behind his power. Not with him kneeling at my feet. But with both of us standing side by side, and every locked door between us finally left open,